This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening. I am CNN reporter and mustache-having extraordinaire John Johnson, here to interrupt your normal broadcast programming with tonight's breaking news. Coming up, could your cat be allergic to meatloaf? But first, due to the recent pandemic of zombieism, we are here to speak to CNN's very own Sanjay Gupta to figure out what is actually going on in that zombie brain. Thanks, John. This is Sanjay Gupta, CNN's senior health correspondent, here to give you an in-depth look into what's actually happening in the zombie brain. Before we actually take a step in to show you the functions of the brain and what's been changed, we'd like to tell you what we believe is the cause of this mutation. The mutation has been caused most likely by the repeated abuse of the English language. For example, someone might ask, how did that test go? And if a person replies, good, when they really mean well, that's an example of an assault on the English language. The brain has been taught, no matter how silly it might sound, this is the right thing for it to be doing. So it thinks, something I'm doing must be wrong, and it has mutated to fix that. Not to mention the repeated use of terms such as YOLO, swag, and swerve have only further convinced the brain what you're doing is wrong. Using this puppet, we're going to go inside and look at what's actually happening inside the human brain when it becomes a zombie. Starting in the back, we have the cerebellum located just on the base of the cranium, right about here. In a normal, healthy, functioning human being, the cerebellum would control balance and motor skills. However, in a zombie, it's been essentially shut off. The zombie is unable to balance and walks with outstretched hands, trying to feel for its balance, as well as the fact that it has no fine motor skills, hence why it cannot just get a job to provide for his family instead of rampaging and pillaging. Next, just above the cerebellum in the cranium, we have the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is directly linked to vision and the ability for the zombie to see. Now, interestingly, the zombie is able to see very well. All of its senses are working quite well, some are even heightened. However, what it's unable to do is process that. What that means, we'll come back to when we get to another lobe. Moving on from the occipital lobe, we have the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe tells, once again, a normal, healthy, functioning human being where it is in close proximity to other objects or other people. For example, I'm standing here and there might be this puppet right here, and I can tell that that puppet is very close. In a zombie, they don't have that. They have to walk swinging their arms violently to see where another object is. Hence their inability to fight, and they're walking with outstretched hands, not only to control their balance, but to feel for prey. The frontal lobe of the zombie is left mostly intact with a couple of changes. For example, the prefrontal cortex, which is located inside the frontal lobe, which is linked to long-term planning, displays of emotions, that is essentially turned off. Therefore, the zombie is unable to tell us how it's feeling. Instead, he has to use anger to show that he's dominant without being able to say, you know, sometimes I feel hurt when you call me a zombie. Going back to the vision part of the brain, located in the temporal lobe, right through the cranium about here, the temporal lobe is no longer able to take that vision that's still functioning and form that into memories. Therefore, it can see an object, acknowledge that it's prey and it wants to eat it. However, it can't hold on to that memory because the temporal lobe has been shot. Now that we've gone around more the outside of the brain, we're going to look inwards at two of the language centers. We have Broca's region, which is more towards the front, and Wernicke's region in the back. Now, Broca's region is linked directly to the ability to formulate thoughts. In a normal human being, I'm using Broca's region to express the words as to what's happening for the zombies. In the zombies, they don't have that ability. Their words are released as har, 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 not, you know, I'm kind of hungry. Moving towards the back, we have Wernicke's region, which is in terms of hearing and actually hearing that language and interpreting what that means. Viewers are listening to this and saying, huh, that's what's happening in the zombie brain. However, in the zombie brain, they don't hear that as words, rather they make no connection. Hence why we're not able to have a normal, decent conversation with the zombies, because they'll just storm off and eat us. Still in that inner region of the brain, the amygdala, which in a normal person would control the fight or flight reflex as to whether or not they want to assert themselves or whether it would be smarter for them to take cover for the sake of survival, that has been impaired in the zombie brain. No longer do they have that option of flight, rather instead, everything is fight. They're always in an extremely aggressive, agitated state. They don't have the control or the knowledge as to whether or not they should back away from a dangerous situation. Everything is just go, go, go. If you were to stick a pencil in each of the zombies' ears, where they meet in the middle is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is what, in once again, a normal functioning human being tells the brain what memories it should hold on to. In the zombie brain, the brain doesn't have that function anymore. It cannot hold on to memories because the hippocampus has been largely impaired. Therefore, you can make a very mean yo mama joke to a zombie and give 15 minutes later, it would no longer feel hurt based on that yo mama joke. The hypothalamus, located just below the thalamus, tends to control metabolic reactions such as maintaining a normal body temperature, things like that. Although the zombie is able to control body temperature, things like hunger and thirst are largely impaired. It no longer senses that it needs food for survival. Instead, food is just an instinct. It thinks, I need to eat all the time. If food is presented, the zombie will continue to eat without knowledge of it being full or no longer needing that to stay alive. Lastly, moving down to the brainstem, the reticular formation, which in a normal human would control the sleep cycle, has once again been extremely affected by this mutation. No longer do the zombies feel a need to sleep, rather they stay awake all the time. The reticular formation doesn't control those cycles a normal person would experience, rather the zombie is up all the time looking for meat and things to eat because zombies only care about eating. Hopefully this has been helpful for you to understand our new zombie neighbors. I ask that you please, based on this knowledge, try to stay safe in our new zombie-full world. And thank you. Back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, for that riveting update on the zombie brain. Now, a message from our sponsors. We are asked to give you this promotional video for how to stay safe in this new zombie era. How to deal with our new zombie neighbors. A guide to putting the brains in friendly endosymbiotic living arrangements. Even though you're living in a post-apocalyptic zombie-filled world, there is never a lack of need to stay healthy. So let's say you're trying to get that last apple off your tree. It's important to get your full fill of fruits and veggies. What happens if you meet a zombie? Now, coming face to face with a zombie can seem daunting. Your brain will probably fill with questions as to what you should do next to best serve this situation. How do you deal with a zombie? At this point, your best is just to give in. It's too late now. At this point, Zombie McGee is already walking away with your leg, and you're just kind of lying there helplessly. It probably wasn't the best situation to be with a zombie anyway. Not to mention, no one gets the apple. Zombies. Best to just stay inside from now on. Trademark. This message brought to you by Securing Our Brains Incorporated.